Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Shaun.
I write about AI news here at TechTarget.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in a generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Shaun?
Yep, we've got it covered. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Targeting AI podcast from Informa TechTarget. Today, our guest is Prem Natarajan, Chief Scientist and Head of Enterprise AI at Capital One. Prem leads the company's strategy for data analytics and machine learning, AI, and data technologies. A veteran AI leader with over 2 decades of experience in academia and big tech. His work spans natural language processing, speech recognition, computer vision, and responsible AI. He previously led Amazon's Alexa AI organization and served as Senior Vice Dean of Engineering in the Viterbi School at the University of Southern California, and is also as the Executive Director of its Information Sciences Institute. Welcome to the podcast, Prem.
Thank you. Delighted to be here, Don and Esther.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. So you have so much experience, and we just want to dive right into it. So how do you define enterprise AI? And then how much did that definition change after the introduction of enterprise-ready Gen AI technology?
Yeah. To take a step back, we'll start with enterprise machine learning, because that's kind of where a lot of this, the use of how we sloped into AI. So, depending on which company you're in, the machine learning revolution in the enterprise started either 15 years ago, 18 years ago, or 5 years ago, like just before the advent of ChatGPT and Gen AI. In the enterprise context, the thing that defines an enterprise context is really that you're very mission focused and mission driven. You have to scale. You have to manage risk appropriately. You have to make sure the models and the technologies and everything are like fit for purpose. So enterprise, if you're in a tech company or you're building a tech product, you have a lot of control over every aspect of what it is that you're doing. Because you're building a product, you might bring in requirements from the marketplace, from users, etc., and then you build this product and it's a self-contained thing. In an enterprise context, you're building a lot of tools, you're building a lot of platforms, and then there is a massive user base of developers who are using all of that to build many different custom applications, in effect, custom products. So that changes the way in which you approach the building of machine learning technology, and by extension now, AI and Gen AI technology. Within Capital One, and not every company is necessarily building their own platforms, but within Capital One, we have a very platform-centric mindset. So we build enterprise AI platforms. These platforms are where everything we do, and it's not just AI, even if it comes to data, you talk about cyber, we build enterprise platforms that are leveraged by the developer community at Capital One to build and deliver the experiences they want to deliver, whether it's to our internal associates, which is our name for employees, or to our end users. And so it creates this extra design and engineering requirement where you're building robust components that can be assembled into a variety of different products and services.
So can you just tell our audience what do you use generative AI and agentic AI for customer-facing applications, and what do you use it for internal use in Capital One?
Yeah, we of course started off with internal use, Shaun, because being in a regulated industry, we of course first and foremost are all about managing risk and making sure that whatever we're building is well managed. And so we started off with internal facing use cases, even though these internal use cases were powering improvements in the end user experiences. So as an example, we have a vast population of agent associates who are providing customer support or engaged in other interactions with our customers, and they're very expert in what they do. Uh, but the tools that they're using on the back end are often a limitation on the quality of the service or the speed with which they can deliver service to our end users. So our first quest was, how do I bring the power of this Gen AI revolution to my agent associates so that they can deliver better and faster services to our end users? So we started building out this whole agent assist set of technologies and agent assist platforms. And it's been a 2-year journey for us so far. I can tell you, as of December 2024, all of our agents, 20,000 plus agents, are now on our Agent Assist, Gen AI powered Agent Assist platform. They use this every day in their interactions with end users, and it has improved their ability to get the right answer to the customer. One of the metrics I can share with you, for example, is that the percentage of relevant answers they get at the first shot has gone up from 84% to 93%. If you look at it from the perspective of error rates, it's like a 2x improvement in the quality of the answers, right? Even though the moves from 84 to 93, the number of times they couldn't find the answer was like 16%, and now it's 7. So that's a 2x reduction. This directly translates into a way better customer experience because the end users get their answers much faster. The accurate answers are higher up in the stack when the system gives the answers to the associates. That thing was where we started. It allowed us to manage risk well. But the most recent thing that we launched, which was January of this year, was actually an agentic AI based experience that we launched to end users directly. It's called the Chat Concierge. We built it in partnership with our financial services line of business that focuses on the automotive loans segment. And so it also brought to life our first agentic AI solution. It's our own, we built our own internal agentic AI framework. That one directly engages with end users, and the end users can, they come to a dealer's website and they want to know what cars are available. They want to schedule test drives. They may want to get other questions answered about the cars they're interested in buying. Our financial services division, sells the software to their dealer partners. And so now the dealers now offer this agentic AI-powered chat concierge, which is available essentially anytime that the customer is available and the customer wants to talk with them. They're no longer constrained to the time that, the dealership is open, that they have people there answering the questions. So this completely unlocks customer experience in a way that we meet the customer where they are, when they are there, and in ways that they want to be met.
It sounds like you're using a lot of agentic AI. And as a banking system, how do you do that safely, right? Because you spoke about the what you just released to the end users, but how do you make sure that your agentic AI systems are safe, and that they're protected for the end users?
Yeah, the agentic, I mean, the question of safety, Esther, is perhaps grabs the attention more when we think about agentic AI because it feels like it can do things, but we have to grapple with the notion of safety for all of the AI and machine learning work we do. And what we have is decades of scaffolding first that's been built up in the form of things like model risk management, etc., that we build upon as a starting point to manage the risk of these things. Um, Maybe it also is useful to step back for a moment and take a look at what is an agent, right? An agent is really the first version of solutions, even the assistance for our human agents that I was talking about, was really more an information provisioning system. Like you could ask questions and it gave you back the information, packaged it in a nice way, maybe found you the right information much faster, things like that. The transition to an agentic ecosystem is really that now these things not only can they answer questions, but they can also take actions on your behalf, right? That they can actually go complete some task for you. Um, but at their core, they're still using generative AI models, and some of these models are specialized in the things that these agents might do. So agentic frameworks are really a combination of specialized Gen AI models that are very good at particular tasks. And then they're very aware of the environment they're operating in. So they know how to complete certain tasks, like which API to invoke or how to connect with a particular system. And that's what kind of makes agentic AI systems that much more capable and that much more powerful. And of course, the general principle we have is the more capable and more powerful something is, the more we want to make sure that we've thought about all the possibilities around risk, right? And so because this is a live system, we still do all the offline model risk assessment, model risk management, evaluations, etc., that you would normally do. But when it is operating live, you need to have certain guardrails so that you're making sure that the system is behaving in ways that it's behaving, and if it is not, that you can actually control its behavior in real time. So we have a combination of cyber guardrails, but also both technology and human guardrails around the LLMs themselves. What input goes into the LLMs? What outputs do we consider can go through safely? And so if you look at the ecosystem today, there's a bunch of, even in the open source, capabilities like, Llama guardrails or Nemo guardrails that you can configure for different applications to make sure that the performance of the LLM is according to expectations. And then ultimately, of course, you have humans who are also helping to make sure that the system is behaving in the way it's behaving. So because of that whole runtime implication, I think the the traditional way of doing a lot of risk management ahead of time to make sure the models are ready needs to be complemented with a fair bit of runtime monitoring, observability, and guardrails to make sure that all the stuff that you did offline is what you see in during its runtime execution.
Prem, quick follow on that on agentic. Is your agentic systems, are they at the point where you're using them with customers like maybe on Capital One's airline reservation system? Maybe you ask for certain flights and it'll book the ticket for you, or are we there yet? Or
We're not there yet, but one can see getting there at some point. I mean, and it won't be just us. I think this is kind of the trend that we will see. When we get there, we'll get there safely, where the system is performing well, etc. But Shaun, what you're asking is essentially the kind of unlock everybody's thinking about. The things like where you can, when you're doing this travel booking, etc., you don't necessarily want to do it at one sitting either. Sometimes you want to do something, you want to come back. The power with all of these AI-based experiences is not only can they work with you in the ways that you want to work with you, the time that you want, but they can also be asynchronous in the sense that you can have your session broken up into multiple things. You're doing something, oh, something's happening in the kitchen, so you need to go take care of it. So you go take care of it, you come back, you continue your thing. They maintain context. They remember everything that you had until the session is done, etc. So I think that's the power. So that's certainly the kinds of experiences that we hope that in the future we and others will unlock. And the agentic framework is going to be perfect for many of those experiences.
thanks for that. So back to LLMs, you just talked a little bit about those. So I'm assuming that Capital One is using some LLMs, whether from NVIDIA or Google, whoever. But these outside models how much customization do you have to do for them, and how do you do it?
Yeah. Um, so actually, Shaun, our our strategy is very much anchored on open source LLMs, not on closed source LLMs. And the reason for, and when I say open source, I really mean open weights. I mean, there isn't really open source in the sense of here's the code, here's all the data that we used to train it with, and here because nobody puts all of that, but they give you the models that are trained with all of that, and they give you access to the weights. The open source stuff is important. Open weight stuff is important to us because our starting hypothesis was that um, all the data that we have from the interactions with customers, the business processes, etc., we had this hypothesis that that data is going to be a crucial elevator, or like it's going to be a crucial way in which we improve the performance of these models. And over the last couple of years, that hypothesis has borne out to be true. The way I put it is, we started off with the hypothesis that your data advantage will be your AI advantage. And we're now at this point where we're very confident that, and we even have modified it to say, our proprietary data advantage is our proprietary AI advantage. And so, what is this proprietary AI that we're talking about? It's really taking these open weights models on the one hand, deeply customizing it with our data. So when you think about customization, there's a fair bit of thing that you can do with prompts and RAG. That's one level of customization that's at the very surface level. Then there's a fair bit of things that you can do with instruction tuning, supervised fine tuning, etc. There's also, you can go much deeper into the model and really update the model in very fundamental ways through a fair bit of throwing the data at it and allowing to churn on that data in a manner that's akin to the original training that the model went through. The challenge there is because you don't have access to all of the original data, making sure that the model's performance on the general purpose tasks that it was originally optimized for stays the same, doesn't degrade, while performance improves on the tasks that you care about, because that's what your data really teaches it. Like how do you do the tasks we care about? What we have found, I can say, is through a combination of these techniques, uh, many use cases. We don't get into the details of all of them, but many use cases that are very high impact use cases that we're able to take to production only because of the customization improvements that we've been able to get. So even when we take some of the best models out of the box, you don't get the performance that you need to take some of the more complex use cases to production. Some of these have to do with you having to do iterative processing to make things better. Some of this have to do with reasoning style, very shallow. I don't want to, talk like, we're still at the beginnings of the reasoning revolution, if you will. So bringing all of that together takes a fair bit of customization, Shaun. And so we've found tremendous leverage. And so we're very happy we went down the path of saying we'll start with open weights models. We'll bring all of our data to those models. We'll do pretty deep customization, and then we'll get the performance improvements that allow us to take a lot of use cases to production.
Great, thanks.
I find that very interesting because you don't hear a lot of, enterprises like yourself saying we start with, open source or open weights model. And I wonder do you think that it's because you have the resources to kind of implement all of these together? And then what other advice would you give to other large enterprises in implementing Gen AI technology?
Yeah. Esther, that's a very astute question. Like, what makes us want to practice our craft in this way, and what enables us to practice our craft in this way? And actually, the origin story for that has to go back to kind of Capital One, like how Capital One started and what's deep in our DNA. Um, Capital One's story starts with data, right? And it's a very well understood story in the open market. But Capital One early successes all came about because of both a focus on acquiring data and also using analytics that unlocked the insights in that data. That's what allowed Capital One to expand the market and actually get into a market that was already served by several large entities at the time, and become successful. In fact, singularly successful in that marketplace. So it was really a combination of using data and then analytics to unlock insights in that data that allowed Capital One to make better decisions. Because of that founding story, uh, there is a very deep reverence for data and analytics buried into our DNA. It's really embedded very deeply in the cultural DNA of the company. We have a founder who's constantly articulated us as a tech company, as our destination being a tech company that does banking. And so the whole infrastructure that's been built up, right? If you think about just 6, 7, 8 years ago, Capital One made the decision to go all in on the cloud, all in on a single public cloud, AWS, right? That's a pretty bold decision at that time, but one that's yielded tremendous dividends year after year. You're all in on the cloud. That means you're now developing over time like digital natives, right? We're a cloud native development shop. That means all of your developers are building with the best up-to-date tools. Your developer efficiency is high. All of your data is sitting in the cloud right next to some of the world's biggest and most powerful compute resources. That means you can bring your data over to that compute and you can build models and analytics capabilities that further reveal even deeper insights into that data. So all of that is what put us in a position, Esther, to kind of say, our vision here is going to be we have these powerful foundations to build upon. And so now we're going to build in the next set of capabilities from the open source, these large language models with open weights. Then we're going to take all of the data that we have, which is conveniently located in the cloud. And then we're also going to use all the compute that's right next to it to bring these data and these open source artifacts together to build really powerful custom models that work in the ways that we want these models to work, and they produce outcomes that are consistent with the ways in which we do these things, right? And so it's really the story of the tech transformation, the move to the cloud, the investment in the data infrastructure, and then the AI. So I think when you look at it in that sense, even though it's like, you know, clearly a 2-decade story in the making, it's kind of has a logical consistency to it in terms of how the progression has happened.
Okay, quick follow-up before my next question. I'm just curious, like, it sounds to me like you're using mostly MetaLlama, the open model, but are you using other open source or
Yeah,
open models like
yeah,
from AWS maybe, or Mistral or somebody like
yeah,
that?
yeah. So, I think we 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 do benchmark models on an ongoing basis. So the way we are set up, Shaun, is because the enterprise platform team does all the foundation modeling work, and these foundation models are actually, in a sense, part of the platform, the Gen AI platform that we build, because it's one of the key assets that we make available through these things. And so we constantly benchmark the things that are available, and we bring in the ones. Definitely Llama is one of those ones. There's no surprise given how prominent they are right now in the open source world. There's also Mistral, but we continuously evaluate all the open source models and bring them in. We are careful because we do want to see a substantial improvement in performance or a substantial improvement in capability before we bring it in and do all the deep customization that we do, because that's not without cost. And so we are kind of thoughtful in saying, when are these inflection points happening? Oh, this looks like a substantial change in the underlying technology, so let's bring it in and let's experiment with it.
Okay, so one quick question about ROI. So how does using generative AI or agentic save or complement human labor at Capital One? So are you already getting a good ROI out of these generative technologies, or is that a little bit down the road?
I'll tell you, Sean, my view on ROI. I think it's one of the unfortunately uh, most hyped words in Gen AI. Um, One way to look at it is if you're in the midst of what we all think is likely to be a generational transformation, one that's going to change the ways in which we work, the ways in which we operate our businesses, and the transformation is long term and it's going to be an enduring one, uh, then the question of ROI is, in some sense, in my mind, um, uh, less front and center in the moment than how do I do this right? How do I build this in a scalable way? How do I build this in a way that every part of my business can leverage these capabilities? How do I build this in a way that I'm empowering all of our associates to participate in this revolution because it's going to change everything that we do and in the ways in which we deliver customer experiences, to our end users, if you will. From that perspective, let me also give you another challenge with like ROI centric thinking. In a 22-month period, Sean, the cost of inference, which is really the dominant cost of using Gen AI, the cost of inference has gone down by more than a factor of 1,000. Let me let that sink in. Not a factor of 10, not a factor of 100, a factor of 1,000 on a performance equivalent basis, as in like on the same benchmarks, the same performance, you can now do it more than 1,000 times uh, cheaply or inexpensively as you could 22, 23 months ago. In an environment where that's kind of the dynamic, it's also hard to imagine that you can do a reasonable ROI calculation and make projections on how these things will change, etc. What you can look is the secular trend saying these costs are going to drop dramatically, right? Now, having said all of that, we still look very actively for evidence of are we seeing positive outcomes, positive returns? Do we have conviction in the long-term story here, etc.? And for those, we look also for feedback from the associates. Are they finding this is making their jobs simpler? Are we finding that they're more satisfied and they feel less cognitive burden? In many ways, to me, the noble aim of AI is to transfer cognitive burden from the user in the moment when the cognitive burden is the highest to the system. And so we're trying to build these solutions with that design, those kinds of design principles in mind. And once you do that right, the ROI necessarily will follow.
Okay, thanks.
Interesting. So we are running short on time, but I wanted to quickly ask you about regulation. As a financial services company, you have to comply with many regulatory requirements. How does your use of AI technology play into that? And then going from that, what do you think is in the future for Capital One and AI?
Yeah, great questions. So on the regulation one, I tell you, I came from, obviously academia and then tech industry and also previously DARPA world, the DARPA and, IC world. Um, from the outside, I also used to think about this regulation as, gee, I have to learn about this and it's probably going to slow us down. What I found as a mindset is that the regulations provide you, if you look at them right, they provide you with a guideline, with a set of guidelines or a pathway to doing things safely. So things that you might practice as a best practice in other industries, here you kind of have to do because it's required. But what I'm discovering on the other side of it is because you have to go through those things, not simply through sheer self-discipline, but because it's kind of required. I mean, everybody should do these things, but here it's required. We're finding out that the things that we build are stickier because we've thought about all the different perspectives. We've thought about all the safety concerns, all the risk. It's not that we don't learn on an ongoing basis and then make adaptations. So even on the agent thing, the Gen AI powered agent assistance tool, we took a very, very careful approach. It took us like, 17, 18 months to get to full deployment. And I'll tell you, if you look at the curve for the first 8, 9 months, you would have thought it's going to take us many, many years to get to full deployment. But we were scaling it very carefully to small number of users and then slightly larger number of users, taking their feedback, making changes to the tool. There was one point where we're in the middle of scaling to a few hundred users. We paused it and said, gee, we're getting this feedback that looks like we should make some fundamental improvements to this tool, which we did. And then the user adoption further accelerated. So there's a culture here around regulations that if tapped into right, Esther, what I'm finding is it's allowing us to make more sure-footed progress, things that we don't need to roll back because along the way, you're very open to learning and baking in the things that you learn and sloping up. There isn't like this, inorganic pressure to do things like today, tomorrow. We want to, because these transformations are so enduring, we want to do them right. Right. And the regulatory frameworks provide us a way. We also engage, obviously, as you know, in the financial industry, engage with the regulators on a very regular basis. Just yesterday was my, a quarterly meeting with a set of them. We share with them not only what we have done, we share with them what we have learned. We share with them what we're thinking about and what we're exploring in the lab, right? Just the motions of going through that and giving an external set of authorities updates and things like that also brings in a fair bit of thoughtfulness. Because when you have to represent these things externally, you're saying, why are we doing it in this way? What exactly are you doing? So I think of regulations essentially as a meta force for ensuring that there is thoughtfulness in every step of the process. So I don't see them as road like blocks at all. We've not experienced it, but it certainly makes you much more thoughtful and analytical in how you're doing things. In terms of what's the future for Capital One, say this, I think today we look at it, yeah, and one has to be somewhat humble. I'm saying every 3 or 4 months, it's a lesson in humility in saying how fast things are changing. And like, there was a time when I used to think making predictions 2 or 3 years out is pretty safe. Look at the speed of technology, but it's different. But I'd say some of the trends that we're seeing that I love. One is the move to agentic systems that can safely automate certain things in the back end. I think associated with it, what will happen is a lot of human scaffolding around these systems to make sure that these systems are operating right, etc. There's also going to be a huge amount of work in testing as you're building more and more of these systems, etc. I think testing has to scale in the right ways, whether it's on the software end things or in the business process end of things. So I think the future here is we have, like Shaun was anticipating earlier, he said, is it going to affect travel? I think the future is you're going to have AI that is powering and improving the everyday financial lives of all of our customers. The thing that I enjoy the most is like there's a lot of companies and a lot of industries that are bringing AI to life for very limited sections of the society. I love the fact that we have 130 million customers, which basically represents such huge section of America. It's a very America-centered company. And so I just love the fact that Capital One is going to bring the power of AI to the everyday lives of, tens and hundreds of millions of Americans and like become perhaps their primary avenue to how AI is going to help make their everyday life simpler, more satisfying. So that kind of vision inspires me quite a bit, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Prem. We really do appreciate your time. for our viewers and listeners, please feel free to catch up with Prem on LinkedIn. I believe that's the best place to reach you. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
LinkedIn is the best place to reach me, and and the best place to figure out how to join the world's best AI team in finance.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please feel free to share, like, subscribe, all of the good things for this episode. And we will see you next time on Targeting AI. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.